Welcome back, everybody. Good Saturday morning out there. We got a lot to cover here in this video here today. A lot of severe weather did occur on your Friday, and we got more severe weather ahead, including a significant severe weather outbreak likely to unfold this afternoon and this evening across the western Great Lakes, and a continued severe weather threat across the southern Great Lakes here on Sunday and across the I-95 corridor here on Monday. So lots of severe weather, including a lot of heat out there as well. We'll get to that here and much more in this video. Welcome everybody back here on your Saturday morning. We got lots of severe weather that occurred across portions of the central plains, the western United States, as well as the northern plains, and it's kind of sporadic across the eastern U.S. here as well. We got a lot of damaging wind reports here across northern parts there of Utah and then western parts of Kansas, including several tornado reports here, including 7 tornado reports there into northwestern Kansas, with a couple of storms that became tornadic here yesterday as well, including kind of an MCS cluster as well that moved through northern and eventually eastern portions there of North Dakota into northwestern Minnesota, producing potentially up to 80-mile-per-hour wind gusts across those areas here as we move through the overnight hours. So a lot of damaging wind reports, a lot of tornado reports there, and some hail reports as well. We had 7 tornado reports, 75 wind reports here, with 6 of those being significant, 15 hail reports, 0 of those here were significant, but still some hail reports there, with the total there 97 severe weather reports here from your Friday, and it looks to get very active once again. We got kind of a ridge kind of elongating itself across the central and southern U.S. We got kind of a subtle trough across portions of southern Canada, moving through the upper Great Lakes, northern plains, and that will send a cold front down south here across the upper Midwest here in the western Great Lakes this afternoon. But before then, yeah, we got a lot of heat. All these orange shaded areas here across Missouri, Kansas, much of the central plains here, getting over towards the western Tennessee Valley, the Ohio Valley. That is actually here a heat advisory that will be in effect. Even in those maroon colored shadings here into northeastern Oklahoma, that is an excessive heat watch. So yeah, we do have excessive heat across these areas here as we head into this afternoon ahead of this cold front. And you can see that, look at that, 105 degrees here into portions of central Kansas, even a couple spots approaching 110 into western Kansas, 102 up toward the Kansas City area, 103 here in St. Louis, 100 degrees in the Music City there in Nashville, and then 102 down into portions there, the Dallas-Fort Worth area, as we head into this afternoon. But to the north of all that heat, we got a significant severe weather outbreak possible here that is, kind of looming as we head into the afternoon and evening. The Storm Prediction Center did make some adjustments here to this outlook. They did actually expand that enhanced risk a little farther to the east-southeast, covering southeastern Wisconsin and now even southwestern lower Michigan. And that also did cause them to kind of move that slight risk a little farther south here into northern Illinois, that like I was expecting with some of the trends in the model forecast here as we kind of move through the day as well. Looking at the individual hazards here, we got a significant 30% area here of damaging winds that could be over 75 miles per hour across southeastern Minnesota, northern and northeastern Iowa, as well as much of Wisconsin, especially central Wisconsin and southern Wisconsin as we head into this afternoon and this evening. You got that 15% shading here of some damaging winds down toward the Des Moines area, getting in towards Chicago, and then portions there of northern Indiana, and perhaps getting into northwestern Ohio as we head toward the later in the time, in the period as we get into early Sunday morning. And then we got that hail risk out there, that 15% hatched hail risk. That's where we could have that 2 inches or larger hail potential across southern and southeastern Minnesota, western Wisconsin, and northern Iowa, with kind of some of these initial storms before they really start to grow upscale into that mesoscale convective system later in the day. We also do have a tornado threat as well here on top of the damaging wind and the hail threat. We do have a 5% chance of tornadoes across those very same areas, southeastern Minnesota, northern and northeastern Iowa, much of central and southern Wisconsin here, and then that 2% tornado risk area kind of extending over towards Kalamazoo, Michigan, the Grand Rapids area, and far northern Indiana, and does include the Chicagoland area here as well as we head here into the later this afternoon and this evening. So let's kind of take a look here at the model forecast that I really think that kind of paints this picture very well. I think the HRRR is kind of a little underdone on the dew point temperatures here. It only has dew points in the lower 70s. I really do think the dew points will rise well into the 70s, perhaps upper 70s into northern Illinois, southern Wisconsin here with all that corn crop, evapotranspiration across this area. So the NAMNS model does kind of show these dew points rising that high, so I did want to kind of show this model kind of more realistic picture of what could probably unfold later this afternoon. So first off here this morning, we get into the early afternoon hours. We got kind of an overnight complex of storms that will continue to kind of fizzle out and move to the southeast across the Ohio Valley, getting in towards the southern Great Lakes. But back off here, upstream into portions of western Minnesota, eastern Dakotas, we got kind of an MCS or mesoscale convective system that will begin to start organizing early on here in the afternoon. Maybe some isolated storms getting down into portions of far northern Nebraska. Those aren't likely to be too severe. I think the stronger storms will be up into western Minnesota and the eastern Dakotas. But as we move toward the late afternoon hours here, we really start to see kind of the squall line or kind of a bow echo starting to develop across the Minneapolis-St. Paul area, getting down through the west of La Crosse, getting down into northwestern Iowa. And then as we get towards the evening hours, this line of storms will continue to kind of progress eastward and kind of drop a little farther to the south and east here with time as well into the better instability gradient across northwestern and northern Illinois. And southern Wisconsin really looks like the prime candidate for potentially the most intense severe weather as we head into the early to mid-evening hours here with the potential for tornadoes, significant 75 plus mile per hour winds, as well as that 2-inch or larger hail across those areas. We could even have some severe weather kind of lingering back toward the Des Moines area as well as we head into the early evening hours, and this will kind of progress to the east here towards your Sunday morning, turning more into a heavy rain threat across portions of lower Michigan, the Chicagoland area, down through central Illinois toward Peoria, and maybe even towards Quincy, Illinois as well. But kind of looking at some of the parameters coming together here, and like I said, the NAMNIS model really kind of paints this picture well, as I think the HRRR model is a little low on the dew points, kind of underperforming the dew point temperature for this time of year. Again, it doesn't take into account sometimes the crops. The corn crops are very matured out there now, and I think the NAMNIS model does kind of paint a better picture with the mid to upper 70 dew points around southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois. So that should yield 4,000 to 5,000 joules per kilogram instability, and that is actually what the Storm Prediction Center is also thinking as well. So that's why I wanted to go with the NAMNIS model, and also kind of looking at the flooding threat as well. We got a slight risk of flash flooding potential across southeastern Minnesota, northern and northeastern Iowa, as well as a good chunk of central and southern Wisconsin here, as well as a large marginal risk for flash flooding across much of the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes region as well. And even in the monsoonal areas, we do have marginal risk here of flash flooding from Colorado down through western portions of New Mexico and into Arizona, with a slight risk of flash flooding in southeastern Arizona as well. But as we kind of move into your Sunday afternoon, we do kind of have that elongated ridge again extending across much of the central and southern United States. We got kind of that upper level trough kind of continuing across southeastern Canada, and what that will do is continue driving this cold front a little bit farther southward toward the southern Great Lakes as we head into Sunday afternoon. But you can see a lot of those temperatures ahead of that cold front here, well into the hundreds here from St. Louis for 101 all the way back towards portions there of the Tulsa area, 105, 103 in Wichita Falls, 97 up towards the Kansas City area. But look at behind that cold front, the Arrowhead of Minnesota. They will struggle to reach the mid-70s as we head into Sunday afternoon. Very refreshing air across the North Dakota region, much of central and southern Minnesota, as well as northern Wisconsin with some lower 80s out there as well. So that is something to watch. And again, a lot of those 90s extending all the way up here into the east coast of the United States along the I-95 corridor, Boston to New York City. You guys could be closing in on the upper 90s as we head into later in the afternoon here on your Sunday. But looking at the severe weather threat here, the Storm Prediction Center did upgrade this area. Again, I did mention they did broad brush this area here with the marginal risk yesterday. They actually did upgrade to a slight risk across portions of New York, northwestern Pennsylvania here, much of Ohio, just south of the Detroit area, and then getting towards portions of Indianapolis here through much of central Indiana, and also downstate Illinois here towards the Champaign-Urbana area. And then kind of extending down just to the east-northeast here of St. Louis, and then a marginal risk kind of extending farther west here into portions of northern Missouri as well. And kind of looking at the individual risk hazards for your Sunday, again, 15% chance here of some damaging winds in that slight risk area here in that 5% area, a kind of a 5% chance of damaging winds here in that, marginal risk area on your Sunday. A lower end threat for hail across the southern Great Lakes here and back towards northern Missouri. And then we also have a 2% chance of tornadoes across western New York State, northwestern Pennsylvania, much much of Ohio, southern lower Michigan, as well as east central Indiana as we head into Sunday afternoon and evening. So timing this out again, I think the NamNIS model does kind of paint this very well, kind of, a really good picture of what could happen here on the radar, of, what the radar could look like here later in the day on Sunday. This is about mid-afternoon. We got some popcorn type thunderstorms across the Carolinas, getting up into portions of Virginia, maybe a couple showers across the Philadelphia area, getting up here towards eastern New York State. But watching back to here kind of to the west across Indiana and western Ohio and lower Michigan, we got kind of some storms and some lingering showers here into the afternoon. But as those push through, they'll kind of re-intensify and kind of grow upscale into kind of another mesoscale convective system, or MCS, as we kind of move towards the evening hours and late afternoon there across central portions of Indiana, including the Indianapolis area, and then getting into northwestern Ohio. We still got some scattered storms kind of developing along that front and ahead of that front as well, across portions of New York State, getting down into northwestern and central portions there of Pennsylvania, including the Pittsburgh area here, and then getting up towards the Syracuse area here in New York as well. But even as we progress into the the late evening hours toward the overnight hours here on your Sunday into Monday morning, we still got some of those storms kind of lingering around across the southern Great Lakes and extending down towards the Ohio River Valley here as we get towards the Louisville area, and then getting back here into portions of southern Indiana as we move into your Monday morning. And again, we still got at least that moderate here instability still growing ahead of that cold front. So we got dew points rising into the 70s out there, and we got all the instability here in the green and yellow, around 2,500 to around 3,500 joules per kilogram, especially across portions here of Indiana, getting into Ohio and downstate Illinois. So that will be something to watch here for your Sunday afternoon. And again, that flash flooding threat is kind of a big threat from portions here of interior New England, getting into southeastern portions of Canada here, all the way back through the Ohio Valley and getting into portions of the Central Plains. We got a couple slight risk areas for flash flooding near the Denver area, getting into far northern New Mexico and southeastern and southern portions there of Arizona, another slight risk with that monsoonal weather continuing across those areas. And then it doesn't stop there. Even on Monday, we got that elongated ridge continuing with that zonal flow across portions here of the northern U.S., all that heat here kind of stacking down toward the south. We got that upper level trough continuing to kind of meander across the southeastern Canadian region. A little bit of some, ridging start to build across the west coast as well. That will kind of start as we get towards that Monday time frame. And again, you can see that cold front here extending through portions of New England, getting down towards the lower Ohio Valley here and down towards the Central Plains. And ahead of that kind of cold front, especially to New England here along the I-95 corridor from Boston to New York City, getting down towards Washington, D.C., perhaps toward the Richmond, Virginia area, we do have that slight risk for severe weather, level 2 of 5. Again, from Boston down towards the Hartford area, New York City, getting down towards, the Dover area here in Delaware, Washington, D.C., Richmond, Virginia, all these areas, and even including southern New York State here and getting into eastern portions of Pennsylvania as we head into this Monday afternoon time frame. Charleston, West Virginia here, portions of northern North Carolina, eastern Kentucky, all these areas will be in that marginal risk here as we head into Monday afternoon, and kind of mainly looking at a large hail and damaging wind threat, not really a tornado threat on Monday. We got a couple of lines of thunderstorms that'll kind of move through. Looking at the European forecast model, some heavy rain as well, lots of lightning out there, so definitely kind of watch your eye to the sky as we head through the afternoon hours on Monday from Boston all the way down the I-95 corridor here to New York City, and then getting down towards portions of Washington, D.C. and perhaps Richmond, Virginia, the Charleston, West Virginia area here as well towards Monday afternoon. And that'll kind of kick itself out here with that cold front kind of moving off to the south and kind of moving that storm threat over the kind of open waters of the western Atlantic as we move into the evening and overnight hours here towards your Tuesday morning. But again, lots of heavy rain out there, flash flooding here. We got 3 separate areas of slight risk for flash flooding across southeastern Arizona, downstate Illinois into northern Missouri, as well as portions there of the Charleston, West Virginia area, extending down here into western Virginia and eastern portions of, Kentucky, northeastern Tennessee, as we kind of move towards that Monday afternoon and evening time frame. But an elongated area of marginal risk for flash flooding across that I-95 corridor as well, including New York City, including Boston, Hartford, Connecticut here, the Dover area, as well as Washington, D.C., going back here to the west across the Albuquerque area, and even towards Phoenix as well, and even the Music City in Nashville here as we move through that Monday time frame as well. Again, as we move toward the middle of next week, it gets a little more interesting here. We got kind of that ridging starting to build back westward across the western, United States. We got an upper level trough and a really strong upper level trough at that, moving down southward here from the central Canadian prairies toward the upper, Midwest here in the northern plains as we head towards that Tuesday, Wednesday time frame here. And we can see kind of that warm front. We'll see a warm front kind of retreat back northward. The cold front that did drop south earlier in the week and during the weekend will actually move back northward here, especially across the central plains and into portions of the Missouri Valley as a warm front, and that will provide more instability to work with storm action as we kind of move into the middle of next week. And you can see all that heat on your Tuesday, the 26th here of July. A lot of those hundreds, especially here into those drought-stricken areas across portions here of Texas, Oklahoma, southern Kansas, as well as portions of the Ozarks as we move here into that Tuesday time frame. And again, even into Wednesday, that trough continues to push its way down to the south, sending a very strong cold front with it as well across the upper Midwest. All that ridging starting to build across the western U.S. toward the Pacific Northwest as well. So all that heat will continue to move up that way here across portions of Seattle, Portland as we head toward that time frame. And even that warm front across the center of the country will start to retreat northward here, providing that instability across the Ohio Valley and the southern Great Lakes as we move towards that Wednesday, Thursday time frame. And you can even see all that heat building to the south across the southeast, the southern and central plains, and even the west coast here for portions of Washington State down through Oregon State, much of California, Nevada, Idaho. All these areas will really be warming up as we move here in towards that Wednesday, July 27th time frame. And to the north, behind that very potent, very cold, I shouldn't say cold, the very potent, very, strong cold front across portions here of, the Dakotas, Minnesota, Wisconsin. Yeah, we're going to be seeing temperatures, refreshing temperatures back into the 70s as we head towards the middle of next week. But we do got to watch here a little bit of instability starting to build ahead of that stronger cold front. Kind of a little bit up in the air of where exactly this will set up. But right now, it looks like the middle Missouri Valley into maybe central and northern Illinois, perhaps over into Indiana as we head towards that Wednesday night time frame. So that will be something to watch it looks like some of the models are starting to trend towards a triple point kind of setting up across northeastern Iowa or portions of northwestern Illinois with that strong cold front moving its way through during that time frame as well. But again, over the next 7 days, look at here, pick your spot on the map. You've got a lot of rainfall, coming your way across much of the Ohio Valley here, a nice soaking rainfall, places like Charleston, West Virginia, back towards Louisville here, Evansville, Indiana, downstate Illinois. Some of these areas could be approaching 5 inches with rainfall when it's all said and done here over the next 7 days. Pretty healthy swath of rain across the Northeast, including the I-95 corridor here from Boston all the way to New York City, an inch to 2 inches there. A lot of heavy rainfall, which is some good news across portions here of the Denver area, getting down here into much of New Mexico and Arizona. Some of these areas could also see upwards of 6 inches of rainfall as we move here through the next 7 days. But unfortunately for Texas, especially central and southern Texas, we're really not going to see much rainfall here during this period, as well as portions here of California moving up into the Pacific Northwest with that ridge continuing to build as we move towards the middle of next week. So not much rainfall, unfortunately, across those areas. But again, guys, that was a lot to get to. Thanks for watching here. Definitely, turn on all your notifications. I will be going live later on this afternoon, so definitely turn on all your notifications for that. Also, remember to like here this video. Definitely press that thumbs up button down below. Leave all your comments, questions, and concerns down below. I'll also be able to answer those later on today. And subscribe to the YouTube channel, guys. Thanks for all the subscriptions here to the YouTube channel last night, and thank you for subscribing here as well if you may do so. So thank you, guys. I'll see you in the live stream later today, and everybody, please stay safe.